All right, welcome to another edition of Setting the Scene right here on the Fifth Down Sports Channel, also on Rod Uncensored. On this show, this is a show where we take a look at all of the things going on in the entertainment world, whether it's movies, whether it's comic books, whether it's television, whatever it is that we see, we take a look at it, we give it to you, and we tell you, we break it down for you so you know exactly what you are looking at. And Victor, thank you for jumping into the chat. Of course, we have the StreamYard link. It just posted in the chat. If you want to be a part of the show, by all means, join up with us. We don't care. We'll take anybody on. We'll take you on. We want to get your thoughts. We want to expand on the topics that we are bringing. And today we have a very special topic of representation and what that means. What that means to viewers and what that means to Hollywood executives and producers and writers are two completely different things. And most people, when they talk about representation, most people are talking about, they want to see themselves on the screen. I can't stress this enough. When you're watching a film, or you're watching a television program, or you're reading a comic book, if the only thing that gets you to connect with the entity that you're reading, whether it's a superhero, whether it's whether it's just a show where real life things are happening, if the only thing you connect with is the color of the person's skin, then there is a big problem with that. And the big problem with representation is that color of skin does not go deep enough. We talk about it all the time. It's content of character. If you can't, if you can't connect with a character based on the actions they perform, then what is the point of having said character in whatever story it is that you're watching or reading? That's what Hollywood misses. They miss out on the representation. And that's why we call this episode When Representation Goes Wrong. And we see Victor on. So let me add Victor to the stream here.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hey, I can hear you.
Do we have the echo from last time or the double speak?
We're actually really good. It's much better than last time.
Perfect. How are you today? First of all, foremost, Mr. Dietz, how are you doing?
I am doing great. As you know, did Snowman this morning. Was not expecting the 2-hour escapade, but we got it done. And then I was like, I'll come on. I'll do another one of these episodes. But man, after working last night, doing that show, and now doing this, I'm going to rely a lot on this Dr. Pepper right here to get me through this. But other than that, we're going strong. How's everything going in your end?
Oh, everything's fine here. It's got once again cold here in the Windy City, but we're used to it.
For us, we got like I'm a weather kind of guy, so it's like, you know, we have the sun is out, but it's not it's cold, but the sun is out, and that's just that's the best of both worlds,
True.
you know. But yeah, so we're talking about representation, and I said this, and Chappelle's show. My favorite Chappelle show skit was when keeping it real goes wrong.
Yeah,
and,
that's my favorite as well.
and they would show my favorite one is the one where the girl calls up and, I don't like people playing on my phone.
Right.
That's what's happened. That's what's happening here is representation. There's a time and a place for it. There's a meaning behind it. It can be done, and it can be done tastefully.
Well, it's not even so much of representation going wrong. It's just that representation, at least now, is basically just a tag that people use for, and you're probably going to hear me say this a lot, lazy writing. This is exactly what we talked about last time with Ghostbusters 2016. They used women, or the fact this was an all-woman cast, for lazy writing, because if you take away the fact that this was a all-female cast and you put it as simply just, here are 4 characters, can you really say that any of these characters were interesting or unique at all? And I'm pretty sure
not one of them was likable.
No. I mean, Holtzman was the only one that said, okay, she's kind of funny. But then again, she played the, quirky know-it-all, the quirky nerd that has some sort of a comedic timing. Abby would do things without anyone else's consideration because she felt she was entitled to do so.
But what was portrayed by Melissa McCarthy, who is one of the most unlikable actors. And the thing is, in real life, she's really likable, but on screen, in everything that she's in, from Ghostbusters 2016 to Thunder Force, if you were unfortunate enough to watch that garbage of a movie, if you watched her portrayal in Thor, not Ragnarok, in Thor: Love and Thunder was awful. And I mean, we get. I'll get to Melissa McCarthy towards the end, because we are going to use the Little Mermaid, which she's going to play Ursula, which is just adds to the absolute debacle that Little Mermaid is going to be.
Oh, trust me, I got some very pointed opinions about that too.
But that's the thing, like Melissa McCarthy, like when you see her in real life, like giving an interview or doing, just off the cuff stuff, she's actually funny and like really down to earth. But when she's on screen, she just plays horrible human beings. And they're just unlikable characters.
Yeah, that's what it seems like. It seems like she just picks like she has the unfortunate distinction to just play really unlikable individuals, even though off camera she's probably a really decent person. I think when people have really bad taste in their mouths when it comes to Melissa McCarthy is because she got so defensive when it came to how people received the Ghostbusters 2016 movie. Like, she got really defensive, and it was like, it has nothing to do with you. We're mad at Paul Feig because Paul Feig's supposed to be the guy who knows how to write female characters and then end up writing the 4 worst female characters in cinema.
And it's funny. It's funny you bring up Paul Feig. I mean, Paul Feig, his directing method. His directing method was basically, hey, you guys know what you're doing, so just do it. Like, there was no script. Like, there was over 75% of that movie was ad-libbed.
was improv. Yeah, it was basically like you all are part of
Wow.
Saturday Night Live. Let's just do a Saturday Night Live skit that goes for an hour and a half to 2 hours.
And I'm sorry, you can do that with a movie that you're making, that you go, all right, we just want to put this out. You cannot do that with a brand like the Ghostbusters. You can't do that with an established brand, because people have certain expectations when they evoke those kinds of, when they evoke, you know, the Ghostbusters, Ninja Turtles, Star Wars,
Star
Star
Wars.
Trek. You can't just ad lib those things. You have to have some kind of a story and some kind of a direction in mind. You can't just let people free for all with that stuff.
When you have an established lore, like a Star Wars, like a Ghostbusters, that people know, they memorize, they commit to memory, and it's even an integral part of a lot of their childhood. When you basically spit on it and say, screw that, we're going to make our own and we're going to make a whole new lore and you're going to like it, otherwise you're sexist. When you put a caveat saying, if you don't like this, and it could be for any reason, but it's because of either the race or the gender or the identity, then you're bigoted. You turn people off so quickly.
And that's kind of the new age thinking. And I put this in the description, for the reading, because it's something that I was really thinking about when I was thinking about all the examples that we're going to give today of Netflix Cleopatra, which it is an amazing display of just absolute, not knowing your audience, not knowing anything about what you're trying to do. But they've gotten a lot of backlash, and what they've done. Peter Pan and Wendy is
Oh
an
boy.
absolute abomination that has been absolutely destroyed since it came out. The Little Mermaid, which every single trailer has been ratioed to hell and back. But
Gee, I
they
wonder
always
why.
say we're updating these for modern audiences.
Yeah.
What modern audience are they updating it for? Because every single one of these that we talk about, when we go back, when we have Velma, and we have the three that I just mentioned, we have Rings of Power. Every single one of these things, you go on Rotten Tomatoes, and the audience score is below 20. Right now, Peter Pan is sitting at 20%. 20% likability on a thousand reviews.
I am not surprised.
I, but that's what I'm saying. You're making this for the modern audience, but apparently the audience hates what you're doing, and yet they do it every single time. It's every single thing, every new thing that comes out. Witcher Blood Origins,
Yeah.
um,
Shira.
Willow,
Look at
Willow.
Shira. Look at Shira. I always look when I look at Rotten Tomatoes scores, and I always look at the audience score. I don't really pay attention to the critic score, because the critic score is that group of that's going to say, yes, this is for progressive, forward thinking, representation. This is where representation matters. And yet the audience is like, this is garbage. The writing is not good. I go back again to Cobra Kai. Here's a girl named Aisha. Yeah, she's no longer in a show now, but she was in there for two of the opening seasons and was one of the best characters. She's a girl of color. She's a larger girl, but no one had to tell you that. No one told you, oh, you have to like her because she is a girl of color and she's a big girl and she's a smart girl. No, they were like, this is a girl who is smart, who has comedic timing, and wants to fight against her bullies. That's all you need to know. That's all you need to know. That
Yeah,
is good writing.
yeah. The same thing. The same thing can be said with Peacemaker. Um, I don't know the characters' names because I don't know any of the characters' names. The only two characters I know are John Cena, John Cena, and Vigilante because his name is Vigilante.
Right.
Otherwise, that's all I would call him. But um, but the black girl in Peacemaker,
Hmm.
she's the same way. Body positivity. She's a heavy set girl.
Hmm.
She's African American, but she's smart. She's funny. She's able to banter back and forth. John Cena is able to lob some things at her that hit her, but she's able to serve them right back, and they're able to have a back and forth to where it's not just her dictating and basically talking down to everybody. No, she rolls with the punches. You can get behind her character. You can kind of see, all right, she's fighting all these people who have superpowers. People around
Hmm.
her have superpowers, but she doesn't, and she uses that to her advantage.
She has a sense of respect. There's a sense of respect with her that even though she doesn't have superpowers, she can still hang because her intellect helps her. Or the fact that she doesn't have superpowers, people may take her lightly, and she can use that to her advantage. Another perfect example of that is if you look into the Resident Evil universe with Ada Wong. People don't really look at Ada Wong as a threat because she's very pretty. She wears this red dress that shows a lot of herself. So they're like, oh, well, she's just a damsel in distress. We can take advantage of her. And then she ends up destroying everybody. And it's like, yeah, some individuals will use your perception of them to their advantage because your perception is going to be wrong.
And that's where I say the representation goes wrong.
Yes.
Representation is look. No one is going to argue. No one is ever arguing on the fact. Oh no, they put name the representation here. They put a gay person in this show. They put
Right.
a black person in this show. They put a Puerto Rican in this show. They put this. No one cares about that until you get in depth and you're like, all right, why did you change this? Why did you
Exactly.
change? Why did you change? It's one thing, and that's where it goes wrong. Is if look, you got an IP for a reason. You got the IP because people grew up. They know the IP. They know everybody involved, and we can skip ahead to the Little Mermaid for this one because you
Hmm.
got the Little Mermaid because everyone knows Ariel. Everyone knows the story behind the Little Mermaid.
Exactly.
That's why you're remaking it. You're remaking it because everyone knows and loves that.
Everyone
So what's
loves the
the
Little
first
Mermaid.
thing that you do? Oh, well, we're gonna race swap Ariel
Hmm.
because the reasoning they give, oh, is not, oh, she was the best for the part, she fit the character the best. No, the reason they give is, well, we had to reflect the image. We wanted people to see them. We wanted people of color to see themselves on the screen. Okay, you
Yeah.
you could have done that, and as you said, that's just lazy writing to say, all right, we're just going to make her Ariel. Why not
Yeah.
make her own character? Why not make, okay, we can be in the Little Mermaid universe and create our own story around this African American mermaid who the only reason people object to it is because they look at her and go, that's not Ariel.
And I think that's the really big, that's the thing. And I'm glad you made that point because I was going to make it as well. Is a YouTuber, her name escapes me right now, but she made such an amazing point that why do we keep having to race swap characters? Instead, make a new character, a new story. You could, like I said, you could still stay in the Little Mermaid universe. You could make a whole new Atlantean universe, but at the very least, you make her a brand new character. It's the exact same reason why people love Tiana, because she was unlike any other Disney, heroine we have ever seen. A working girl, very busy in the hustle bustle. She was looking to take care of herself, and she got swept up into this other scheme, but she wasn't the usual Disney female character we were used to seeing, which is like princess looking for love, looking for a Prince Charming, and all that jazz.
And and it's gotten so bad. It's gotten so bad that they they not only so we'll start with Cleopatra, because that's what's on the picture, and that's kind of what started this whole thing. It's gotten so bad, the race swapping, that not only are they taking established characters, that now they feel they have to go even further. They have to race swap historical figures. We have actual data that says Cleopatra was Greek and Macedonian, or was Macedonian Greek.
Yep.
Okay. And I got in an argument with somebody over this. When I first brought this up, they said, well, Giannis Antetokounmpo is Greek. And I'm like, yeah, he's not Macedonian Greek in 900 BC.
Correct.
I mean, yes, Giannis and his family are Greek, but they live in the year 2000. They don't live in 900 BC when over 85% of the population was fair-skinned.
Yes.
So there is absolutely no way that Cleopatra could come from that ancestry and be as dark-skinned as they portrayed her in this Netflix series.
I wanted to touch with that along with the Little Mermaid, because one of the things that people kept saying when a lot of people were upset that they race swap Ariel was that, well, where Ariel's a fictional character, so it shouldn't matter what she is. It shouldn't matter if she's black. It doesn't matter if she's fair-skinned, because it's a fictional character. That goes away when you're talking about historical characters. Because ask yourself this: how much backlash will we get if the likes of Malcolm X, or the likes of Dr. King, or the likes of Nelson Mandela, who we know are black characters, and we race swap them to be white individuals?
I saw the best meme for this was somebody posted on Twitter. Underneath the Netflix, underneath this description of Cleopatra, they posted a picture of Netflix documentary Barack Obama, and it was Ryan Gosling.
Right.
And I was like, that's it. If you did that, everyone would be up in R. Everybody would get their pitchfork out. Let's go.
Exactly. Imagine if coming out in 2023, there was a documentary of Nelson Mandela, but he was played by Anthony Hopkins.
Yeah.
People would lose their minds.
But it gets even, see, this is where we're on the historical part here. And this is where it gets even worse, is when they know they screwed, they have to know they screwed up.
Yes.
They have to know they knew what they were doing. But then when they get called out on it, you have people like the executive producer of this show, Jada Pinkett Smith, saying, well, we wanted to find stories that represent the black community. And so we reimagined this story for us.
I'm sorry.
You understand how, and this is where, again, going back to where representation goes wrong. You realize what she just said. What she just said is, we wanted to find stories that represent the African American community, but we couldn't find any good ones, so we just co-opted one. And
Right.
that's such a lie. It's such a lie, and I mean, I know I'm not the person to say this because people can see on the screen. Look, I'm not black, but if somebody comes out and says, "Hey, we looked for black stories and we couldn't find any," that's a slap in the face because there are great stories out there. There are great stories, and I've talked with I've talked in Jane Theory's chat a bunch of times. Saturday mornings, if you're up 9 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Central. Jane does a great job of talking about all of this stuff, and we get in the chat and we talk all the time about this stuff. And it's not about. There are stories out there. There are stories that are written about African queens that nobody knows about. Go find those stories. Tell those stories, because that's what representation is. Representation is not taking someone else's story. It's making your own story.
Exactly. And I'm black, and I can say that if they really don't think that there are black stories, black prominent stories, then they're not paying attention. And the thing is,
they're not.
The thing is that they're making it seem like, oh well, people don't care about black stories. If that were the case, then a movie like, say, Straight Outta Compton wouldn't be a thing. Because that is a black story. That is a black urban story.
Absolutely. Speaking of great stories, let's bring on another guest to our program. And what's going on, Snowman?
Snowman.
How are you, gentlemen?
We're doing great. We are talking about representation and what it actually means to be represented on screen is not, and we're diving into this point, and we're getting there, but we're talking about representation is not about your physical characteristics.
No,
It's about the person. It's about the character.
Mm-hmm.
And I said this last episode. I'm going to say this a lot on this program.
say it.
We are going backwards.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. In the 1960s, Martin Luther King gave a speech that he ended by saying, "Do not judge me by the color of my skin. Judge me by the content of my character."
Yep.
Yes, indeed.
That's what's important.
And yet you have people who look like Martin Luther King who talk about how much they idolize Martin Luther King. However, they do not follow his sentiment at all.
Ain't that the truth? Ain't that the truth?
And Snowman, and I think you'll appreciate this. When I look at a lot of people saying, well, representation, this is a perfect sign of representation, I always equate that to lazy writing. Just like if you only take stars and stats, that is lazy sports journalism, because you're not looking at the intricacies of the game. Just like you're not looking at the intricacies of the characters and of the story itself when you put these movies together. Cleopatra is an amazing character, but she didn't have to race swap. You just have to have her as she is.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with like Joan of Arc. Same thing. Amelia Earhart. Same thing. Rosa Parks. Imagine if someone said, "Hey, we're going to do a movie about Rosa Parks." Okay, who's going to play Rosa Parks? I think Scarlett Johansson.
What? We'll have Sally Field play Rosa Parks.
Right. You're like, what?
No, that's not how it works. That's not how it works.
Victor and I have said this often, and of course, Dichu and I have said this often. Too much like right. It would be too much like right if they actually got the representation correct. And they just fit. You know what? It's come down to lazy writing, lazy research, and the purposeful need to screw some things up. That's all that's come down to. The purposeful need to screw everything up.
But see, Cleopatra is a as we just said, historical. There's evidence. There's evidence behind it. So,
Yeah.
I mean, the minute you do this, you better have a good reason. You better have people are going to be up in arms. You better have a good reason, if I was asked, if I had made this production and if I was involved in this production in any way, and somebody came to me and said, "Hey, why did you cast this person as Cleopatra?" Oh, she was the best actress. She came in, blew the room away, and we just thought, hey, despite the color, she displayed the characteristics so much that we could forego it because she carried the picture that way. That's how you explain it to the audience, so that so when they tune in, they come in with an invigoration of, all right, I want to see this person. I want to see this character. No, they say, well, we hired her because because we wanted to reimagine the character.
Right.
Well, I don't want to see your depiction of Cleopatra anymore, because obviously you didn't care enough. You didn't care enough about the character. You didn't care enough about the historical event. This brings us to the second representation of our show, which is Peter Pan and Wendy.
Oh boy.
Which is basically representation gone amok, because Wendy is just overpowered Mary Sue from the beginning. She's beaten her brothers in sword fighting because, that's what women do in the night. Because women in the 1920s could sword fight with their brothers. That's allowed to happen. Apparently, no, not in the source material, because Wendy was a matriarchy. She was basically a maternal influence on everybody involved in the show. In the new representation, she is not maternal at all. Doesn't care about anybody else except for herself. Case in point, they get in a fight. She's sword fighting with her brothers, and she knocks the sword out of his hand, and it goes flying into a mirror. Now, an older sister who just did this to her younger brother, and her dad comes in and is, who did this? A maternal person, someone who you want the audience to like, would say, I did it, Dad. I'm sorry. We were playing and it got out of hand. That's how a normal person would handle that situation.
Yeah,
not Wendy, because she's a girl boss. Not Wendy, because she's a girl boss and has to be the center of attention. And nope, Wendy says they did it. Blatantly blames the brothers for her knocking the sword into the mirror. It was totally her fault, and she takes no accountability at all, and is just a horrible human being. Like that. This is like the first 10 minutes of the movie. Like already, I'm like, I hate this character. So
I don't like you.
Yeah, already
I don't like your ass.
I don't like the main character of your story, and then they just ramp it up to 11 the rest of the movie. So that's the girl representation of it. Then you get into the race representation, which is absolutely unequivocally horrible. By they race swapped Tinkerbell, which I mean, whatever. It's Tinkerbell, like it's a fairy, and like we said before, Victor, you didn't have to use Tinkerbell. You could have used any. It's a fairy. You could have made up You could have made up your own fairy.
Yeah,
and when they said, "Oh, where's Tinkerbell?" They could have said, well, we use this different character and
Well-
she's a different character. But no, they have to use the name. They have to try to get the marketability. But that's beside the point, because the bigger race swap was Tiger Lily.
Mm-hmm.
They made Tiger Lily. The first time I saw Tiger Lily on screen, I went, what? Straight up Navajo Native American. And I'm like, oh my God, they're not going to do this.
Well,
Yes, they are.
It was wild. I was like,
Tiger Lily,
no.
by her character, she is Native American. She is Native American by her own character. She is Native American. The thing that gets me with Tinkerbell is that, one, you made so much new material about Tinkerbell. You could say, well, she's now queen of another group of fairies. That's why you don't have her. What gets to me is what you said on Snowman in the Morning about how she's completely a non-factor now. When if you look at not only the Peter Pan animated movie, but also the movie Hook.
Yeah.
She's an integral part of Peter Pan even being in Neverland. She takes him to Neverland because, according to Hook, Peter was afraid that when he gets older, he'll die. Because I guess for some reason, a newborn understands mortality of human beings. Okay, fine. But she takes him to Neverland. She raises him like a mom. He ends up becoming now this fighter against older adults who are pirates and protecting the lost boys who from what you said are no longer lost boys. They're lost individuals.
No, they are now the lost individuals, as I call them. And it's just it's so funny the way that the extended shot of that reveal is one of the most amazing things I've ever seen on screen. So the Lost Boys come up, and Wendy is like, wait, what's going on? And they're like, we're the Lost Boys. And she looks around, and Wendy is like,
what the hell is this?
She goes, but you're not all boys.
Right.
And one of the girls is like, so? And then Wendy destroys the entire scene, and she goes, I guess it doesn't really matter. What? You just told the audience that none of this matters. It's so stupid. This is why this movie is just getting destroyed, because they just undercut themselves. But she literally says to the screen, I guess it really doesn't matter. No, Lost Boys matters. And again, you have to go back to the source material, which is not the cartoon. You have to go back to the original story from the 1920s.
The book.
Which is, the original story is they're lost boys because boys fall out of their pram and can't get in. Girls, and Peter actually says this, he says, girls are too smart. They don't fall out. And when they do, they find their way back.
Right.
But boys aren't. So basically, you already had it set up to where girls are better than boys. And you just decided, nah, that's not good enough. We have to lump everybody in together. It makes no sense.
I'm very surprised that they're not lost boys in here that consider themselves non-binary. I'm very surprised at that.
I'm very surprised that there was no connection to that at all. But going back to Tinkerbell, and that's what I wanted to get at with Tinkerbell.
Well, let me step away because I got to get ready for my afternoon show, and I got to get Brian's bet slips out. But just wanted to show some love to Dietz and to Victor for setting the scene. If y'all haven't had a chance to check out the full show, please check out the full show. And if I get it together, I'll run an audio replay on my network. So let me get on here.
Absolutely. We're all for that, and we love being on Snowman Multimedia. It's always a good time, man.
Appreciate it. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Yeah. But Victor, I wanted to get back to the point that you just made. This is where representation goes wrong. This is where it goes wrong in Peter Pan. They race swap Tinkerbell for no reason.
Exactly.
If you're going to race swap her, if you're going to swap her at all, why would you take her completely out of the scene? I mean, the thing I got mad at in watching this debacle, I can't even call it a movie. The thing I got mad at is in the original cartoon, Tinkerbell basically is the driving force behind every plot development.
Exactly.
She brings Wendy to Neverland. She introduces her to Peter. She gets mad that Peter is infatuated with Wendy. So what does she do? She goes to Hook, tells Hook how to capture Wendy, and gets her captured because because of jealousy. Well,
Yeah.
what doesn't happen in this? The Hook just shows up. He just shows up, and then they try to, you know, Captain Hook. I could go on for days about what they did to Captain Hook in this movie, but it just Captain Hook was a former lost boy, and that's why he hates. That's why he has a thing with like a war against Peter Pan. But that's why he shows up. It's not because again in the cartoon, Tinkerbell is the driving force behind all of this. In the
Right.
movie, she just stands in the background. She does nothing the entire movie. You could take her character out, and it would be the exact same movie.
Because once again, we use representation as an excuse for lazy writing. What's the story behind Tinkerbell? Well, we don't know, but she's black. Yeah, but it doesn't matter. She's black. Representation over the story, over what her character is about. And I'm sorry, I don't live vicariously through characters. So if no one represents me, I'm cool with it because I care more about the character itself rather than what they look like.
Yes, and that's again, that's where they went wrong in this. Where they went wrong here, Cleopatra, they went wrong by historical figure and just basically destroying their own mythos. In this, they went wrong by they race swapped the character and they made her completely useless, which doesn't represent which you represented your people, but you made the character irrelevant. That's a horrible idea because now, yes, you're represented by seeing them on screen, but then you see them do nothing, and you're like, okay, well, she did nothing, so she didn't add anything to this story.
Which would make the representation worse, no? Because you have a situation where you're like, okay, we have this black character, we're supposed to be very heroic, and yes, she's relegated to doing nothing. She's relegated to a sideline character. Then why was she race swapped? There's no point.
Exactly. It makes you go, why? Why did you do now? Why did you do this? And that leads us to our. I mean, it's not the last one because we could go on for days about representation but our last example that we're going to use is The Little Mermaid. And this Little Mermaid movie, this movie is dead on arrival. I don't know what they're going to try to do with this movie. I don't know if they're going to try to put it in theaters. I don't know if they're just going to throw it up on Disney Plus. I think with all the marketing that they've done for this, I think they're going to throw it in theaters, and it's going to get absolutely hammered. It's going to get buried. And I know there are people that I've talked to that have already said, "Oh, I'm going to go to it just to check it out and see what it is." Well, more power to you guys, because
the other problem I have with Little Mermaid, or what people, even with I think her name is Halle Bailey, I think her name is the one who plays Ariel, was they even got the whole premise of the Little Mermaid wrong. We need to express something. I need to express something about the Little Mermaid and why she wanted her legs and this, that, and the other. Yes, part of it was because she fell in love with Eric at first sight, but her interest in the surface world transcended Prince Eric. She wanted to know what it was like to be on the surface world because she was always told that it was bad, it was dangerous. You need to stay here in the water where it's safe. And even Halle Bailey was like, "Oh yeah, we're making a brand new Ariel. She doesn't need no prince or nothing like that." And I was like, Prince Eric was secondary. Her thing was she wanted to see what the surface world was like.
And that's exactly where I was going with the lead into The Little Mermaid. Is she? They wanted to take both these tropes that we're talking about, the race swap and the girl empowerment movement, and they just lumped it all into one character. And like you said, Halle Bailey, you couldn't do worse marketing for this movie than coming out and saying, "Well, we thought that we thought Ariel needed to be updated. We thought she doesn't need a man. Okay, so what's the story here? What's the story going to be? How is Ariel going? The reason Ariel gets legs is because A, she wanted to see the surface world. B, she wanted to go find Eric. So if that's not why she's going, then why is Ursula going to come to her and say, "I can give you legs, but you have to give me something else in return"? Why would she make that deal if she doesn't care about seeing Eric? If she doesn't care about any of that, why would she do that? Exactly. If she doesn't care about Eric, why would he care about her enough to, when he sees her and she can't talk and she can't communicate, why would he even give her the light of day if she doesn't care about him at all?
Exactly.
So the story makes no sense. Now, the even worse part, it gets even worse.
I don't know how, but okay.
Because I have seen the end scene of this movie.
Okay.
It has been leaked, and I have seen screenshots of the end scene. Now, if you go back to the source material, we all know Ursula steals Ariel's voice, becomes basically goddess of the sea, becomes the queen of the sea.
Yep, the sea queen.
And what happens? She becomes this huge big monster, and Prince Eric, steers a ship into her with the mast going right into her, and boom,
and kills her,
and she dies, and Ariel's voice comes back, and that's how and everybody lives happily ever after.
Right.
In this movie, the screenshot that I saw is Ariel steering the ship but here's the part that drives me crazy. With her mermaid, with the mermaid half of her body still intact. So it's as if she never got legs, which makes absolutely no sense to the story. It makes no sense. I can't figure out how they get to that point. If she has her fins, why is she on a boat? Because she could just be in the water.
Exactly. It would be more beneficial for her being in the water.
It makes no sense. Why is she steering a ship? And again, you're taking the penultimate move. Eric gives up his life. He sacrifices his life to steer the ship into Ursula, not even knowing if it'll work, but he just says, "I'm going to give it a shot."
Yeah. I mean, even he says it. I lost her once. I'm not going to lose her again.
So you're taking his agency away, trying to give it to Ariel, which doesn't make any sense at all in the story. And it doesn't, it doesn't add anything to her character.
But also take consideration of this. The reason why Eric is able to steer the ship into Ursula is because he's what? A privateer. He's been on a ship. He knows how to sail a ship.
Yeah.
Ariel has never been on a ship before, and if she would have been dead.
And she doesn't need to be on a ship.
Exactly.
She has a fin for a reason. This is just what they do. And of course, Melissa McCarthy is going to be playing Ursula, so this might be a good character for her because we're supposed to hate Ursula from the beginning. But I just can't see. I can't see Melissa McCarthy playing Ursula the way she needs to be played.
No, I don't
because
see either.
Ursula is one of I would say she's in the top 5 of Disney villains.
Oh yeah.
And she is one of the most menacing characters. As a child watching that movie, Ursula was as scary as can be.
I mean, you put her up
I
there.
don't see Melissa McCarthy pulling that off because she's not going to have that inflection. She's not going to have that in her.
You put her up there with the likes of Maleficent and Cruella de Vil. I mean, someone who is just that evil, but also has that sense of charisma, which I don't see Melissa McCarthy having. The whole thing about Ursula was that she was able to pull on the emotions of Ariel and pull her in. I don't see Melissa McCarthy having that type of charisma to be able to pull someone in like that. Someone will look at Melissa McCarthy as Ursula is like, yeah, no, you're evil.
And she was a master manipulator. She manipulated Ariel. She manipulated the Ariel's father, the king.
Right. Yep.
She manipulated everything in her path. That's what made her so evil, is that everybody believed in her, believed everything she said, and it just came across that way. So that's what's happening in this movie. Mm-hmm. And here's the bigger part of especially Peter Pan and Little Mermaid. And this is the problem. This is, again, we're talking about where representation goes wrong. Mm-hmm. They sacrificed the story for the representation. And then you have to ask yourself, all right, why did they do this? Why did they do these things? And the reasons that they give are the most cringeworthy, dumb reasons that you can think of, because they said these stories had to be updated for modern audiences. Here's the problem. If you think the stories have to be updated, you're telling the audience, we didn't like the source material to begin with. We didn't like the Little Mermaid the way it was written, so we had to rewrite it in a way that would serve our purpose, that would make us feel good. Well, you know what? You know what that tells? And the same thing with Peter Pan. Peter Pan, we didn't like the source material. Had the writer for the new Peter Pan and Wendy, the writer actually said, the source material is problematic. If it's problematic, don't remake it.
Then don't take it.
Don't remake it. That's what you do. You don't remake something that you don't like. That's what these people don't understand.
Not only that,
if you don't like it, don't remake it, because you're not going to do it justice. And you know what's going to happen? You know what happens? All the people, you cannot like something. That's fine. We can have different opinions. But you know what? There's a lot of people out there that love The Little Mermaid, that think The Little Mermaid is the greatest thing that they ever saw. I know people that grew up thinking it's the greatest thing, and they loved Ariel, and Ariel was their favorite Disney princess. And it's fine if and again, it's fine if to race swap Halle Bailey is a phenomenally attractive. She's an attractive girl. She can play Ariel. That's fine. Mm-hmm. But when you make her an empowered girl boss that everyone hates, well, guess what? The character is ruined. Her
And then
character is awful.
and you ruin the character that came before her as well. I mean, we saw that with Velma. People loved Velma back in the old Scooby Doo's, but this one ruined it for all the ones that liked the older Velmas.
And again, you could have easily, the Little Mermaid could have easily been done. And we're gonna call this, the Little Mermaid, or add on to the title of add anything you want onto the title. I mean, change Halle Bailey's name to some. And I'm not. I'm just spitballing here. So change her name and just make it Little Mermaid, the story of whatever you want to name the character, and make that her character.
Yeah,
and make that her character, and everybody would have gone, oh, it's an addition to the story. It has nothing. If they watch it and they don't like it, they can go, all right, well, I can still go back to the original, and people that watch this one will go, oh, there will be people that love this character and go, oh, I love this new character. This is awesome. Maybe we can get them both in a movie together and we can have a Little Mermaid universe. But no, they're not smart enough, and they didn't and like I said, they didn't respect the source material to begin with.
Yeah.
Their whole goal was to change the source material. Guess what? All the people that liked it, the millions of people that liked it, they see the changes and they go, no, you're changing it, I'm out. That's what we're seeing.
I'll give you a perfect example. When there was a movie based on Gem and the holograms, right? The newer version. One of the most exploitative things I've ever seen was towards the end of that movie. They had all of these young women, all of these guys who were talking about how much they loved Jim and the holograms, how much they loved Jim as a character. They loved the cartoon. They loved all the toys and all that. But they put it at the end of this movie that no one liked. But basically they were trying to portray it as, oh, they like this Jim that's on the movie screen, not the Jim that was on the TV, not the Jim that you had several dolls of. No, this is the Jim you're talking about. And it's like, no, that is exploitative as I don't know what, because that's not the Jim that they liked. The Jim they liked was the one that they grew up with. So what you're doing is you're telling hundreds upon millions of fans of The Little Mermaid, Peter Pan, Star Wars, Ghostbusters, whichever other source material, is that no, you're wrong. We're right. We know what you like. So sit down, take it, and shut up. And it gets so frustrating. So a lot of people are like noping out, saying no. And then when people speak on it, they're called the fandom menace. Now we are menaces because we want something that we grew up with, that you stole from us, basically.
Yeah, and people are craving that. They're craving extensions to what they want to see. People are writing fan fictions all the time about IPs that they grew up and loved.
Mm-hmm.
There's no reason to even desecrate or even go back and remake old stuff. All you have to do is just add on to the story.
Yeah.
That's all you have to do is you can tell your own stories within these universes. Like I said, make a Little Mermaid. All right, make it. I'll just say it like, say they called her Genevieve. It's Genevieve's story, and
right.
This is what she is, and she's a black mermaid, and she's been, you could do everything that you want to do. You could say, oh, she's been treated badly by the other mermaids, and that's why she wants to go out on her own and do her own thing. And you could make a story around that.
Right.
But no, you have to say, nope, she's Ariel. And when people go, that's not Ariel, and when people say that's not Ariel, you're being racist now. You don't like it because she's black. No, I don't like it because her character sucks.
Not only
It
that,
has nothing to do with her race. It has to do with the fact that she just come out and said, "Oh, I don't need no man. I can steer a boat for no reason with a fin." Why? People are going to ask these questions, and they're going to sit there and go, "This story makes no sense. Therefore, I don't like the character. I don't like the fact that you race swap this for no reason." Have there be a reason. If there's a reason behind it, it's fine. It can be done. It's been done before.
Right.
I mean, you go back to Rings of Power, where every single thing about Rings of Power was, oh, it's representation. We have representation. We have the first black elves, which was a lie, by the way. Which was a lie, because people have brought it up. I've seen it a million times, screenshotted. There were black hobbits.
Yeah.
In the Hobbit, they're right there on the screen. You can see them. Now, they didn't have agency. They were there. They weren't prominent like Frodo and all them.
Right.
But they were still there. And so when you have Sophia Namvet coming out and saying, this is the first ever black dwarf, and you're like, no, we have pictures. It just makes everything it makes you sound stupid. It makes you sound like you don't know the source material.
Well, they
know
don't.
The source material. I mean, the classic example, Nick Fury.
Yes.
Nick Fury. In the comics, I have the comic book card from 1995. Nick Fury is white, blonde haired. He's whiter than I am, blonder than I am, and has bluer eyes than I do.
Right.
Yet when he comes out on screen, it's Samuel L. Jackson. Does anyone does anyone have a problem with Samuel L. Jackson playing Nick Fury?
Not really.
Not anybody. Why? Because Samuel L. Jackson played the character correctly. He had the same mannerisms as the character. He made the character his own, and he did good by the character. So everybody said, all right, we can deal with this.
It's again the representation bug, but at least in that situation, because of how good of an actor Samuel L. Jackson is, people are like, okay, we're fine with this because it's Samuel L. Jackson. You're not going to get mad at a Samuel L. Jackson movie. You're just not. He's too good. He's too good of an actor. But I think again, the problem is that so many people, when they look at this whole representation thing, they always say, well, we can bring in a half-assed script. So long as we hide behind the representation, no one's going to criticize us. And then once they hit the criticism, like, well, you're just saying that because you have a bias against the fact that Ariel is black. No. Is that Ariel, and I saw a couple of scenes of her and Eric. I mean, you remember being back in the 7th and 8th grade when you had to go to your first ever dance, and it's awkward because you don't know what you're doing and the girl doesn't know what she's doing, so you guys are like dancing really awkwardly and it's really super awkward. That's how Ariel and Eric were on the scenes that I saw The Little Mermaid. There was no chemistry whatsoever. Meanwhile, in the animated series, you could tell that Eric had a thing for Ariel had a thing for Eric, and you can feel the chemistry between the two as it gradually builds.
And I can guarantee the scenes that you're talking about. I can guarantee. I haven't seen these scenes. I guarantee they didn't shoot those together. I guarantee you they were green screened, and they were in. I can almost guarantee you that they did not shoot those scenes together. And that's why it seems so awkward, because they're not acting together. It's the same way. It's the same way Bill Murray in Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Mm-hmm.
Seems like he has no idea what he's doing. Why? Because no one else is in the room with him. It's just him in front of a green screen. So he has no idea what the other people are doing. Michael Douglas has no idea what Bill Murray's doing. This is a big. We're going to get into this future as we go, but that's an episode down the road of just CGI overload and people not knowing how to. You have experienced actors that have no idea what they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, there was one scene where, do you remember the horse carriage scene in the Little Mermaid, the animated one, where where Eric is riding with Ariel and she's kind of enjoying the scene and he gives her the reins and she makes the horse race off somewhere. In the scene that was in the live action one, it looked like these two were riding towards a funeral, towards a graveyard for a burial. There was no smile. It was like two people sitting in the car driving to a burial site because they just did not know what to say to one another.
No inflection,
nothing.
I mean, look, I'm unapologetic about this, and I'm forthcoming. I love fairy tales. I've loved them my whole life. I've watched them all. And one of my favorite shows of all time is Once Upon a Time.
Yep.
I loved that show. That was live action that was done well. Why? Because the people behind Once Upon a Time loved the stories and they wanted to retell them in today's. That's one of the other things that this represents. People talk about, we have to tell the story. We have to tell the story for modern audience. Okay, well, put it in modern day then.
Yeah.
You don't have to tell the story that it was from 1950 or whatever, because it makes no sense.
Here's the reason why
in the world that they're growing up, it makes no sense. But if you put it in today's world, rewrite it so that it fits 2023, and you live. I always use this as an example. Like you do it in 2023 Chicago.
Yeah.
Shoot it in the streets. And one of my favorite movies of all time, Romeo and Juliet.
Oh, the Leonardo DiCaprio,
the Claire Danes, Leonardo DiCaprio. When they remade that and they made it for at the time modern audience, they shot it in modern time.
I'll give you another example of one that had really great representation and was still a really good movie in of its own. The Wiz.
Yes.
The remake of The Wizard of Oz. The Wiz. It was so good. No one looked at it as, this is just race swapping Judy Garland for someone or the Scarecrow for Michael Jackson. They were like, no, this is a different Dorothy, a different Scarecrow, a different Tin Man, a different Wicked Witch, a different Cowardly Lion. They're all unique characters. They have their own issues. For Dorothy and Judy Garland, it was a sense of new beginnings and wanting to go to the next level and wanting to go to another frontier, whereas this one was scared of growing. She was scared of moving forward. She was scared of change and being put in this new world. She's like, oh my God, I don't know what to do, but I got to get brave real quick, otherwise bad things are going to happen. That's done right. So there are examples of this being done well, but right now, like I said before, that movie was really good writing. The movies done now are lazy and they're hiding behind representation rather than embracing it.
And so, without beating a dead horse here, but we're bringing these examples up, and this is what this show, this is what we're trying to get out there, is just. This is what's happening. And why it's happening is because people don't care anymore. People don't care about what they're writing. We want to write a Lord of the Rings show. Well, why? Well, because we don't like the way Lord of the Rings is represented. Well, then you shouldn't be writing a Lord of the Rings show.
There you go.
You don't let you think Peter Pan is problematic? Okay, you shouldn't be writing Peter Pan and Wendy. You should be writing a different. You can basically take the entire story and just tell your own. Don't involve Peter Pan. Don't even try to bring it. All you do when you bring in these IPs, when you you're trying to latch onto that fan base. But when it blows up in your face, and this is why I say when representation goes wrong, when you don't respect the lore, you don't respect the fans, those fans are not going, they're going to turn on you. They're going to turn on you, and they're going to turn on you fast.
And I want to bring this up real quick. The reason why why I love the fact that you're talking about this is because the very first Disney movie I ever watched as a kid was Little Mermaid. In fact, I can tell you exactly what was on the VHS tape that was on. It was Back to the Future 2, The Little Mermaid, When Harry Met Sally, and Batman. And I watched The Little Mermaid, I would say at least about 40, 50 times. It was a great movie. And so when something that I grew up with, something that you grew up with, something we all grew up with is being changed, and then they're saying the reason we're changing is because we want to make it for a modern audience. You guys are too old. You guys won't get it. It's exactly what happened with Miss Marvel, Captain Marvel. What's her name?
Brie Larson.
Brie Larson. And she was like, oh, well, I don't need some old white dude tell me why this movie didn't work for them or why this didn't work for them, because I don't need that. And it's like, but that's who you're playing this for.
And to Brie Larson, you don't need it. Yes, Brie, we understand you don't need it, but the studio needs our money. The studio needs us to go to the movie theater. The movie theater needs us to go there and buy popcorn and watch a movie and be entertained to where we say, man, that was fun. I want to come back.
Yeah.
That's what the industry needs. The industry needs writers who respect fans to say, I'm going to make a good product that is going to make people come back. I'm somebody. I'm not at a point in my life where I wish I was, where I could go to the movies every week and watch a new movie. It's not my. I'm not there. I'm sorry. I don't have 20. I can't drop $40 at the movies. By the time I buy a ticket, get popcorn. I mean, I have to buy popcorn if I'm watching a movie.
Hey, I'm a nachos guy myself.
The movie theater has to be done. And I'm somebody, the streaming has destroyed the movie theater experience. Yeah. Everybody says that. I don't buy it. I've watched movies at home. I've watched them in a movie theater. If it's a good movie, I want to see it in a movie theater. Yes. I want to see it in a theater the way it's supposed to be seen.
I give a perfect example of that is the last movie I've ever seen in a movie theater was Joker. And it was a movie I said, I want to see this in movie theater. I like where they're going with the character. It is a completely different retelling of a character, Joker. But it tells it from a side of someone who has been kicked down and kicked around, and his mental illness is getting to him, and he finally just snaps and becomes this character. But it tells it from a different lens, so he's still a unique character just under the name of Joker. And I said, I'm a go, and I'm a nachos guy, not necessarily a popcorn guy. I'm a nachos guy. I come in with nachos, with cheese, some jalapeno peppers, and IC on me, and I'm good to go. And it was a great experience. And I agree with you. I think the fact that because now streaming is a thing and it gets very pricey to go to the theater, people are like, yeah, I'd rather just go home and watch a movie. But the ambience is so different when you're in the theater, in the seat, watching the movie, eating nachos or eating popcorn, and you're with somebody. That's the ambience of being in a theater compared to none. I still am trying to find a drive-in movie theater to actually, when I start driving, I want to actually go to a drive-in movie theater.
I would love that. I would love to go to a drive-in. We used to have a drive-in here. I never got to go, and then it shut down, and I was like, oh man, that would be such a cool thing to go see. And a lot of times they would show like the old two. I remember one time they were showing The Shining, and I was like, that would be so cool to see at a drive-through. Although I would never go see The Shining at a drive-through because I've seen Twister. I know what happens.
Yeah.
I know what happens when you watch The Shining. A tornado somehow is going to attack you. I know how that story ends.
Yeah.
But no, the theater's such a good experience. It's such a good experience, and it's funny you said go with people. I'm actually one of those people. I will go to the theater at like I used to. When I was taking the bus, and I used to work at a hotel, I worked overnight. I would catch the matinee show for a movie. Literally sit in a movie theater with like 3 other people. Like we were like the only 3 in the theater watching the movie, and it was the greatest experience because we're all just like yelling to each other like, "Hey, did you believe this part?"
Yeah, because it's just you guys. You're not really disturbing for everybody else. Like, I mean, for me, I was a movie date.
It was such a weird experience. And then I have like I'm going to see Guardians on Saturday, and it's gonna be a packed theater. So it's it's a totally different experience when you're watching it with like yourself. But just seeing the movie on when it's a good movie now. I do have to ask you this question, Victor, because you said you watched Joker.
Yep.
And I love Joker. I love Joker. The Joker is one of my favorite. Was previously my favorite villain of all time. One of my favorite characters of all time.
Yes.
So I loved every minute of the Joker, the movie. So I have to ask you: are you excited for the second, for Joker 2?
Yes and no. Yes, because I love the original Joker. No, only because I don't know where they go from here. Because really, the Joker was such a complete movie. You got, who was this guy, Arthur Fleck? Why does he have these illusions of grandeur? Where his mental illness came from? Where his stress came from? How much you really enjoy seeing him kind of take revenge on society has kicked him around. Even when he has this heated debate on the show of his idol who makes fun of him, and he ends up killing him, you're not really cheering him on, but you're like, you know what? I understand his frustration. So the question now is, where do you go from here? Do you go into years later, he escapes the asylum and goes to the Batman? Does he start this evil empire where he now takes over the city? Where do you go from there? To me, Joker was such a complete movie. I don't know if you really want to do a sequel and possibly ruin it, but I'm also excited.
I'm gonna tell you why I am as unexcited for Joker 2 as I was excited for Joker, the first one. I'm going to tell you that in one question that I have to you.
Okay.
Do you believe the Joker movie was real? Do you believe the Joker really happened?
Ooh, that's a good question. Because again, it goes back to his delusions of grandeur. It goes back to his mind is warped. So you really don't know what is true and what is not true. That's a good point. That's a very good point.
When they announced that they're making a second one, I was immediately like, this is a bad idea, because right now the question anyone can ask is, was the Joker movie, was that all in Arthur Fleck's head? And I have said I can cite examples of, yes, this was an absolute farce, and I can believe that. And if they make a second one, they have to definitively say yes or no.
Yeah,
You cannot continue the story if it's all made up. You can't continue it.
exactly.
If it's for real, it destroys the mythos of the first one.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm unexcited about the second one. Is I don't want it to ruin that ambiguity of did this really happen or not? And the reason I always say this happened in his mind is by going to the it's the one scene in Joker that makes no sense.
Okay.
Is Bruce Wayne's parents.
Yeah.
The death of Bruce Wayne's parents makes no sense.
Yes.
It makes absolutely no sense because in the Joker, and I think the movie's been out long enough that I can spoil it for everybody. But
yeah, oh yeah.
Guess what? Batman's parents die. I know, shock.
If you've never touched a Batman, if you never touched a Batman comic book, yeah, Bruce Wayne's parents died.
We all know the story of Batman is his parents die. His parents get mugged. Why do they get mugged? Not because there's chaos going on around them. They get mugged because Bruce gets scared of watching, and I believe it's Pagliacci that they're watching.
Mm-hmm.
But it's something he gets scared of the clowns that are on that he gets scared, right. and they leave the movie early. And the whole point of Batman is he blames himself because if he didn't get scared and they didn't leave at that moment, they wouldn't have been in the alley. Joe Chill wouldn't have been able to do what he did, right. and all of that. That's what's driven Batman for his entire life.
Yeah.
So if they're just standing out in the middle of the street, like the reason they come out of the theater in Joker is because the city is burning alive.
And if it's all in his head, then why do they leave the movie theater? Why do they get killed? Why does Batman all of a sudden pair his parents' death with the Joker? Because unfortunately, when everything's in a panic and they leave, the guy's wearing a clown mask, and he says exactly what Joker said on TV was, "You get what you deserve." So if all this is in his head, then all this is irrelevant.
Yeah. So that's what to me said when I saw that scene. I went, wait, this is supposed to be the origin story of Batman. It's completely wrong. It's got to be Arthur telling the story and trying to fit it in. And then when you get to the end and he's talking to the therapist or whatever, that's when it clicked to me, like, oh my God, like this is all just like his girlfriend was Tyler Durden. This whole story is Tyler Durden, where he made this up and he's telling the story, and that's why he laughs at the end. And she's like, "What's funny?" And he's like, "You wouldn't get it."
Right. Because
I was like, "Oh my God!" "Oh my God, this is awesome!" And it was great. It worked. But again, if you make the second one, you have to either give it credence or you have to say, yeah, the first story did not exist and it's all in Arthur's head.
Yeah.
And you have to the whole mythos is there is no, you can, is there, it's whatever the viewer wants. If the viewer wants to think it's real, they can think it's real. If the viewer wants to think it's fake, they can think it's fake, and they can find reasons to do that. And if you take that away, it ruins the entire experience.
Yes. What I find hilarious was that this movie that got so ratioed by people saying, oh, you can't watch this movie. It'll cause mass shootings. The incel culture will go nuts and everything. And not one shooting happened. Nothing happened based on Joker. Everyone was like, okay, it's either a good movie or a bad movie. And move on. Meanwhile, this movie grossed $8 billion. This is the first rated R movie that grossed $1 billion worldwide. And yet, people were like, you can't watch this, don't watch this, don't watch this. This is going to be terrible. It's going to cause mass shootings, it's going to get violent. But every movie they have propped up, whether it's The Last Jedi, whether it's Little Mermaid, Peter Pan and Wendy, they all get completely destroyed in the box office because people are like, what is this? This looks boring. I don't want to watch it. And I'm not going to spend money to go watch it.
And on that note, speaking of the Batman, I believe tomorrow. I'll probably end up doing it tomorrow. I know the next episode of Setting the Scene, whenever I decide to do it, the next episode, we are going to be looking at the Flash trailer. Which, if you've seen the most recent Flash trailer, you will notice something very important missing from the Flash trailer. And I stress the Flash because the entire trailer is Michael Keaton as Batman telling the story of Batman in the Flash trailer. The Flash is significantly kept out. And there is a big reason. There are two big reasons why. And we will get into that on the next episode when we watch the Flash trailer. So, Victor, thank you for being on the show. Thank you for adding all of your insight. It makes this such a joy to do when you get to play off and to say your stuff and have somebody there to A, either back it up, or B, say, no, here's another example. So I thank you so much for doing this, man.
I thank you for having me, man. This is one of the first few mediums that actually talks about stuff like this. So we got to keep this going, because it seems like the more we talk about it, the more people eyes are opened, the more people start to understand what Hollywood is really trying to do. And we got to keep that up. We got to keep that going, because otherwise we're going to see Bugs Bunny in the next Bugs Bunny movie. He's going to play as an armadillo, because armadillos need representation.
Yeah. Representation gone wild. But again, this won't be the first. And that's why I said this is going to be when representation goes wrong. And there's going to be plenty of examples of this as we go, especially with the writer's strike going on.
Yeah.
Look, it's not getting any better. But here's the thing. And yes, we highlight this. It's not about what is being shown to us. It's the why behind it. That's the scary part. The scary part is not, because what's been going on, it's been going on forever. We've seen it a million times. It's ramping up now because why? Why is it? Because studios want to tell us what to think rather than show us and let us think for ourselves.
Yeah, and basically show us instead of showing us what we want, they're telling us what we're supposed to want.
Yeah. You need this. You need to see that. You need to see this because this is what you need to get out of it. No. Exactly. I need to see it. I want to see something so that I can make that determination. And that's how it's going to go. So as I said, next episode will be The Flash. Saturday, I will be seeing Guardians. So, of course, there will be a Guardian there. And just a note on the Guardians, on my Guardians review on this channel, spoilers don't exist.
No.
Okay? And that's not to say they won't happen. That's to say they will happen.
Right.
I believe you cannot review a movie without spoiling it. And there's no such thing as spoiling it. Where if I tell you a scene that happens, if you think that scene is awesome, go watch it in the theater.
Yes.
Go watch. If it's a movie that's out, go find it on streaming and go watch it. Spoiler. There's no such thing as a spoiler. Because if I show you the scene and you see it, oh, well, you're going to want to see it in the context of the movie, not just, oh, I saw a clip of this. That's how I feel about review. When I watch a movie review, whether it's The Critical Drinker, whether it's Mahler, Disparu, some of the Jane Theory, some of these other critics, when I watch them and they show their videos and every time they go, well, I'm going to try not to spoil this for you. I'm like, no, just spoil it for me. Go ahead. Like, I'll watch it. I'll watch the movie anyway. Doesn't matter. So that's going to happen, but I'm going to watch Guardians and go through it. If you've been on Fit Down Sports Show, we did Ant-Man Quantumania. That's basically what's going to happen. Now, I don't know what – I don't know. I'm assuming that Guardians is going to be good. And if it's not, I'm going to tell you it's not. If it's good, I'll tell you it's good. I'm not pulling my punches, and I'm not going to prop up a movie that I think is terrible. But Guardians it can go either way because it is a Marvel movie, so there could be some trouble. But it is the send-off of Guardians. James Gunn supposedly respects the characters, so I'm hoping he gets a good send-off here and kicks off his DC universe. So we got that going. That's the plan for the future. And until then, guys, if you've seen something in the comments, let us know. If you want us to keep an eye on something, let us know in the comments. We will take a look at everything as we see it, and we will set the scene for you. So, Victor, thank you, guys. Thank you for watching. And as always, enjoy the entertainment that you have. That's all we can ask.
Because you may not have it for long. Take care, guys.